Hello everyone, this is your second place gaming here, more like a dedicated forum dweller. For those that may or may not know, my Battle.net tag and nickname is Lostario. And if you've seen any of my previous videos, you've probably noticed that I'm not your average quote-unquote dead gamer during weekend type person. But I'm also not doing the videos of type quote-unquote do this and you will win it all either. I tend to make the more with a little bit of I wanna make this game actually feel good approach, all without moving too much deeper into the territory of trying to min-max everything and analyzing everything and every single stat in the game like a competitor or a professional would. In other words, I truly and deeply believe that there's a difference between playing a good game and the game being good just because it's goodly or say feelingly good beatable. Now, not gonna lie, I may or may have not wanted to make this video have a much more viral title, like say Diablo 4 is utterly sadistic, or Diablo 4 drives me absolutely mad, or be a bit too soft and simply say the opposite, quote unquote the problems of the average wanna learn to be good player in Diablo 4. But I think this is decent enough, and hopefully people consider this point of view that I'm about to summarize now below. First things first, since this is thrown out there a lot, and a lot of time I want to make this clear and the criteria what makes a player casual. You're gonna say that depends on the time spent of playing the game. That might be true at its extremes, such as when player playing the game for 8 hours or not playing more than say few hours a week, for example. However, that's more related to availability more often than the actual attitude of the player. To me, what truly makes a player casual or not, regardless of hours spent in the game, is their absence or presence of the I want to win it all attitude. If you're a I want to play to win and winning matters and that's all that matters type person, then I'm both sad and also perhaps jealous to tell you that despite your low playing hours and low effort, you are not a casual. Casuals enjoy the journey. They don't look at the game from a final destination standpoint. They want to feel like it's a good ride to have and a good journey, regardless of the bumps or lack thereof on their way forward. That's what makes a casual a casual. They want to enjoy the game, not sink endless hours in the game just for the sake of beating it. That's not a mindset of a casual, despite whether or not they are truly a pro. That being said, I'll go even a step further and simply do the statement that a casual would expect the game to quote unquote teach them to play the game. They would both follow and enjoy the process of learning the game as it is quote unquote supposed to be played. In other words, casuals would put themselves in a position of I am a pupil and I want to learn and let the game guide me through my process of improvement, learning and beating it also. Remember this exact statement because it is important, and I'll do the further analysis of this exact same concept of quote unquote the game being a teacher of its own down below. Now that we have made clear about what the quote unquote criteria to casual is, I'm about to tell you how Diablo 4 really feels to an actual casual that isn't disinterested completely in the game and wants to improve, at least somewhat. Now, not gonna lie, initially really wanted to showcase here a comparison and confirmation of my biased view that a fight between level 20, level 50 and level 90 character, in this case a barbarian, feels exactly the same and then make a quote-unquote rant about it. However, when I logged in with my level 50 freshly new World Tier 3 barb after playing my level 91 for quite a while, I got shocked at just how much better and how much more interesting the level 50 fighting experience was. The whole combat, or at least the vast majority of the level 91 was repetitive upheaval one after another, one hit KO after another. In other words, the combat felt too repetitive and too shallow in comparison. Now the problem with Diablo 4's repetitiveness it is not level up in complexity ever. It becomes faster, it becomes stronger, it becomes bigger, harsher, but complexity stays the same for practically forever, meaning that the late game's quote-unquote variety of experience in the game is based entirely on your choice of activities. Do I do a Hell Tide? Do I do a Whisper? Do I do Varshan? Etc. But each of those activities feel again too similar and too repetitive also. If we were about to compare the game with another real-life learnable activity, say like playing a guitar for example, and the player wanted to actually make some type of progress and learn how to play, this is how the game actually feels to them. Day 1. Place a low frets on the 6th string, learn to hold the guitar, pick, body posture. Day 2. Play Smoke on the Water tune for a whole day. Day 3. Same as day 2. Day 4. Same as day 3. Days 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 and so on. All the time, again and again and again, play Smoke on the Water, and eventually adding up 5th and 4th string to form the power chords. Then at day 50 start doing this with a metronome and start speeding it up. And then day 70 the game expects you to suddenly play Holy Wars the Punishment Due. This of course resembles the Uber Lilith fight of the end. If you want to learn to play, you should learn some other things in between Smoke on the Water and Holy Wars. However, the game never gives those opportunities, nor asks those in its own. I don't know about the others, but to me that kind of treatment feels bad. Like borderline, I'd even say sadistic to be honest. If we imagine Diablo 4 to be a real-life guitar teacher for a second, and do the summary again. First, shows you the basic on how to hold the guitar and the pick. Second, shows you to play the basic drill of Smoke on the Water and tells you to practice that for 70 days. And 3, expects you to play Holy Wars the Punishment Due at the last day. What kind of teacher would you think or rank that for? Not good, right? In fact, I would even say terrible. Well, that's how Diablo 4 feels to people that actually want to make some progress in it and care about improving their gameplay somewhat. So, to all the casuals out there, the message feels like this. You either kill Uber Lilith to gain the rights to speak about the sadistic design of the game, or keep your mouth shut. And no, for once and for both of God's and Lilith's sake, it's not the length that is the problem. Treat the game like it is a too much repetitive sadistic cycle, cause that's what it is. Not that the cycle is too long or long enough to be noted by someone. Even if it takes 3 days to get where you want, if you travel near a seaside, countryside, lakes, mountains, woods, it won't feel as exhausting as traveling through a desert for 8 hours, which is the exact state of the game currently it is now. And one more thing, I'll end up in this video with few more words about hardcore, cause that one also gets thrown a lot. If you want your progress or skill experience some semblance of thrill of playing the game, well, play hardcore, they say. Sure, hardcore may make things a bit higher and higher stakes and surely adds the thrill, but doesn't change the fact that the leveling in Diablo 4 feels like driving through a desert for 8 hours. Namely, I'll do the same guitar playing comparison from above and just simply say that playing hardcore is like going through all of that exactly same experience with additional punishment of when you pick 10 milliseconds too early or too late, your hand also gets burnt. Now about some potentially positive feedback to make actual suggestions for improvements to make this less of an issue. But I think it's kind of important to quote-unquote nail the right thing when it comes to these kinds of fixes, i.e. do the most improvement with minimal effort. Namely, recently at BlizzCon the following question was asked: do you plan to add new dungeons and bosses in World Tier 4 before fighting Uber Lilith? And I hope I'm not misinterpreting things here, because obviously hinting at the lack of variety of content for World Tier 4 phase. And the answer wasn't as direct, but it was mostly an approval. My problem with this is, again, You're adding even more quote-unquote optional content. I'm sorry, but this won't work. The game does not need even more optional activities. It needs to make the baseline gameplay move the needle. It needs to have a teacher tell us, okay, that was enough smoke on the water, now play something else type of improvement. And I think the easiest way to do this is to consider adding some quote-unquote Archon elite mobs, i.e. mobs that are too good to be an elite and too bad to be a boss. And they occur more rare in the world than other elites, but still are frequent enough to not be forgotten. The main quote-unquote purpose of Archon elites wouldn't be to challenge you in a 1v1 battle, for example like a Bloodseeker would. Their main purpose is to empower every other nearby mob, to make them a notch or two or even three more intimidating, albeit temporarily than usual. Here are some examples of those. A big or bigger vampire that has an animation of cloaking everything for X seconds. A succubus that is made of frost and frost themed and gives either frost armor to other nearby mobs, or say has AoE with a frozen orb that gives some kind of cold bonus to other mobs when it explodes. And no, this must be included in the leveling phase of the usual. The game's variety and choice and do something else than smoke on the water phase must come naturally during the leveling phase of the game, not abuse every single bit of creativity to be advertised, made a video about it, and put exclusively as a level 100 content only for those that are addicted to play 150, 200, 300 hours or more. And must say that I'm at least hopeful, if not certain, that there are a lot of people out there who want to point out this problem, to be honest. I think that it's safe to assume that a lot of people have played the game for say 60, 70 or 80 hours and did everything except the Uber Lilith fight and don't want to play it anymore. In other words, they said, screw this, that was exhausting and I'm done. And to be frank, don't blame them. All I can almost certainly say is both the devs and the people out there should make no mistake about this. The level of repetitiveness and endless grind with quote-unquote no transitional phase of challenge or combat substance is borderline sadistic and real. Bottom line, I'll do this statement. The game cannot afford to make everything, literally everything that isn't necessarily a top tier challenge to be quote-unquote hidden behind that optional content curtain. The game doesn't have enough of a baseline complexity to provide that freedom to make everything that's not bare and bones and skeleton of the game optional. Something that isn't quote-unquote easily beatable should become more mandatory sooner rather than later in the game, because it is important that the game gives that feedback signal to the player, hey, that was enough smoke on the water, here's a better challenge for you. Enough so they don't feel like supremely, or at least not 100% exclusively reward motivated all the time and therefore bored. And the last but not least thing that I want to point out for me personally, but I also hope there are also others there like me. Just because people ask for more power growth does not mean it should be provided by the game creator. Just like every other type of people out there, casuals can also differ whether or not they want to win. But one thing that most certainly unites all of them is, well, not just casuals, I hope, across the board, don't waste our time. Don't condition game content with 200, 300, 400 near pointless grind hours. My personal issue with all that quote-unquote obsession for endgame power addiction, whether someone asks for more power or more victims to test that power on, it adds up not just to the total time, but even initial time required to achieve something. Avatar of Z is a huge red flag for me. I'm afraid I must at this point beg for the game company to not turn these kinds of events into practice. Do not introduce greater rifts and endless power curve into Diablo 4. And certainly not focus your attention on what happens after level 100 is acquired. Thanks for watching and see you soon.